Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kickin Asperger's. This is going to be episode number 6. I'm your host, Tim. First, I want to apologize that I didn't drop a new episode last week. When I made the last video a couple weeks ago, I had forgotten about the fact that it was Thanksgiving, and, as someone who, again, I have Asperger's. We tend to like fixed schedules, and a holiday week, especially Thanksgiving, where it drops on a Thursday, it's anything from a usual week. So my schedule was all sorts of topsy-turvy. I thought maybe I was going to get an episode out. I didn't. I apologize for that. Please, from the bottom of my heart, I hope you accept my apology. That was not intentional. I really, really didn't want to leave you hanging. I appreciate those that do tune in to Kickin Asperger's, that, your support for watching and sharing and commenting and stuff like that. Again, if this is your first time to Kickin Asperger's, I'm your host, Tim. This is a channel where I talk about what it's like to live growing up with Asperger's, and, the challenges that I faced and how I've overcome them. And, hopefully I can educate those with Asperger's, give them some ideas on how they can get outside of the norm, or maybe get outside of that comfort zone, and make them realize that they're special, but not but they're a gift, and that's really what it is. They're gifted in other ways. And for those that, if you work with someone that has Asperger's, or you have a family member, whether it be a child or a brother or sister, even a cousin that has Asperger's, I hope that you are able to take away something from this, and maybe have a better relationship and a better understanding of what they're dealing with. Because, those of us with Asperger's, we tend to view the world in a little bit different light. And what we think is funny may not be funny to someone else, and what you think is funny may be absolutely horrid to us. We can be polar opposites, but, but just because we think it's different doesn't mean that that you shouldn't talk to us, or exclude us from certain things. So in this episode, I want to talk about Asperger's and motor skills. So it is my understanding, and I didn't really notice this at first, but my understanding is that those with Asperger's tend to have difficulty developing motor skills. That can be from doing simple things, such as, clicking their fingers together, snapping, balancing on one leg. Apparently, people with Asperger's can balance on one leg if their eyes are open, and have a very, very difficult time balancing on one leg if their eyes are closed. Admittedly, I don't know. I know I can balance on one leg. I've done that with my eyes open. I'm not really sure why I do it with my eyes closed. I've not been pulled over for a DUI, and been through that street side field sobriety test. So I honestly couldn't tell you whether or not that's something that I would excel at. It seems like a rather unusual thing to do, but I don't know what is necessarily unusual anymore. Unfortunately for me, I don't really have a good gauge on whether or not my motor skills were delayed in developing or not, or if they've they haven't been developed all the way. Truth of the matter is that through a lot of those years that you're developing those big motor skills, like learning how to play baseball and catch a ball, throw a ball, learning how to play football, or go golfing, things like that. I just after I turned 11. I was diagnosed with arthritis, juvenile arthritis. And therefore, a few years, I pretty much was, a handicapped person, a crippled person. I had to relearn how to walk. I had a hard time, just the amount of pain that I felt in my knees and my ankles and my hips, and, all over my body. I had to relearn, over time how to walk, because I had difficulty standing some days. Even in my hands, if you look at my fingers are crooked. That's part of my arthritis. That's some of the deformities that I have. Apparently my you look at my index finger, it kind of looks like a little, or my pinky finger, it looks like a little boot. They call it a boutonniere. They call it a boutonniere deformity. For those that want to know, because why not? Apparently, the tendon has slipped off the top of the finger and has shrunk a little bit. And it's been said that maybe a Botox injection in the muscle belly, the arm will loosen that up. And I don't know. I haven't tried it, quite honestly. I've lived with this for 25 plus years. I've just become used to it. You adapt, you know. I mean, one time we all used to ride horses, and now we get around in cars, and we fly airplanes and take trains, and so we adapt over time, and that's what I've done. So, a lot of my developmental years, when you're really fine tuning those motor skills, I was learning how to do things like feed myself. I could not close my hand with any sort of strength because of the pain that I had in my hand, to really feed myself without putting around my forks and spoons and knives. I would have to put pipe insulation. So, my motor skills were deficient from arthritis. Were they deficient from Asperger's? Possibly. I didn't try out for the football team. I am a big dude, 6'2", 6'3", weigh 300 pounds, give or take 20 pounds. Depends on what diet I'm on, whether or not I'm below or above. And, I'm a big old dude. I go shopping and people are like, oh, what team did you play for in college? I didn't. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Apparently I'd make a heck of a lineman. But there were other things that I did, and really, some of that was associated with arthritis. Part of my treatment, part of what was provided to me from the schools that I went to, was I received an occupational therapist, and I would see this occupational therapist once a week, once every other week, something like that. And I would go in, and we would do various exercises to, not lose range of motion in body parts, because that's something that is a real thing with people that have arthritis, is that if you don't work, even though it's painful, if you don't work those joints, you end up losing range of motion. So, like, for me, there's number 3. That's a really weird number 3. I have difficulties with stuff like that. But one of the therapies that we did, she made for me some balls that were filled with beans that I could learn how to juggle with. So I learned how to juggle. Did that help with my Asperger's? Possibly. I really don't know. I can tell you that today, even though I am in my mid-30s, there's a running joke in my family: keep the sharp knives away from Tim. I have this uncanny ability to cut myself all the time. Even a couple months ago, I really cut my thumb, my left thumb, slicing a tomato for salsa. It really kind of makes me think that I just need to buy the stuff in the jar, because that was painful. I've cut arteries in my fingers on glassware. I have done all sorts of things, and even, over the past year, I've been getting into some various projects, and I've been working with, honestly, a wire brush on a drill, and I have marks on my body because apparently I am unable to properly control the wire brush on this drill. Is that, some of the lack of development of motor skills? Maybe. Is it because I'm an idiot? Yeah, probably. I usually chalk it up to the fact that I'm an idiot and I wasn't doing it in a safe way to start with. But, maybe it is that I have a lack of motor skills. If you have Asperger's, you have someone, in your family that has Asperger's, do they have, problems with their motor skills? Do they have problems, if you want to throw a football around or something like that, do they have a hard time throwing it properly? Do they have a hard time catching it? Do they have a hard time, balancing on one leg with their eyes closed? Again, I still find that one weird. But hey, if that's a test, go right to it. So it's one of those things that um, I can see it being a factor for me. But again, it's tough for me to separate whether or not my issues with the development of the motor skills is because of Asperger's or because of my arthritis. Um, the arthritis today doesn't really affect me, so I would assume that that I would have some refined motor skills, but apparently I don't if I keep hitting myself with a wire brush. So maybe that's it. The best thing I can say, again, I'm not a medical professional, so this is purely what I think. Um, when it comes to refining those motor skills, it's kind of like the old saying goes, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. For me, I worked on motor skills without even really realizing it, by playing the trumpet all throughout high school. I also dabbled a little bit in the piano. I am not proficient at all in the piano. Please don't ask me to try to play anything on the piano. About the only thing I learned how to do on the piano was play the theme song that Cheers, and it's been so long since I've played it that I couldn't do it today. And a lot of that was more I wanted to exercise because of my arthritis. I wanted to exercise and keep that range of motion going in my hands when it came to the piano. Um, I did do some swimming a little bit before I got into before I was diagnosed with arthritis. I still do enjoy swimming today. I am not any sort of competition swimmer whatsoever. My highest place that I finished in any sort of swim meet was fifth. It was last, but it was fifth. And I still do some swimming, at the lake, the backyard pool, stuff like that. Again, not anything competition, and a lot of that is to relieve some stress on various body parts. Because again, I weigh 300-ish pounds. My knees hurt over time. So, try to work on those motor skills. I think, quite honestly, maybe playing some video games will help with some of the hand motor skills. There's a lot of talk. Is it something? Is it a hand-eye coordination thing? And apparently, if it's hand-eye coordination, then you're high-functioning autistic. If it's not hand-eye coordination, you tend to have Asperger's. In some cases, I guess, it really doesn't matter. People that have, good hand-eye coordination still have Asperger's. People that don't, whatever. I don't think there's necessarily a good test that goes hand in hand that really differentiates someone who has Asperger's from someone who's high-functioning autistic, especially since really they're on the spectrum kind of together anymore. There is, if it's not hand-eye coordination, there is another term for it. It's a long term, starts with a P and ends with an ION. I'll type it down in the comments so you know what it is so you can look it up. But, again, it's one of those things. And I guess part of the motor skills lack of development is that people with Asperger's have a hard time judging where things are. They have a hard time understanding really personal space. And I think that extends a little bit to trying to catch a football or trying to catch a baseball or something like that. I know that when I worked in a government office, and still today, I have a hard time judging someone's personal space. I may get a little bit too close to them and not realize it. I may be too far away from them, not realize it. Again, those of us that have Asperger's or autistic, we tend to, we break away from the social norm. Again, I think we're all different, and what may work for you is not necessarily going to work for me, and what may work for me is not necessarily going to work for you. So, that's really, it's really what I have to say about the whole motor skills thing. Let me know if you have Asperger's or have a family member that has Asperger's and, motor skills development issues have been a problem with you or your family member or coworker or whatever, please let me know. And let me know, tell us what are some things that you've tried in order to help develop those motor skills. I might try them so that I don't cut my fingers off anymore when I use a knife, because I enjoy fresh salsa. And again, it's I anything that seems to work for you. If there's a topic that that you want to discuss, let me know, and I'll try to discuss it, try to work it in. Again, I want to say I'm not a medical professional. If you think you have Asperger's or you think a family member has Asperger's, please go seek a medical professional, whether it be a physician, a pediatric physician, psychologist, psychiatrist, whoever, someone who has medical training, because I have exactly zero medical training outside of CPR class. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode number 6 of Kickin Asperger's. If you did, please hit subscribe so that you get the notification the next time I post a video. If you found this to be informational and educational, please hit the like button. If this is something that you have a family member that you think would enjoy or appreciate, please share it with them, friend, coworker, whoever, share it with them. Ultimately, I'm really here. I want to help people understand what it's like having Asperger's and what I can do. Honestly, by me doing these videos, it breaks me out of my comfort zone a little bit. It is a bit uncomfortable for me to create these videos, but I feel like I've got this calling to get knowledge out there. So again, subscribe, like, share, comment, all the good stuff. Let me know. I'll reply to your comments at my earliest convenience, that I can actually sit down and dedicate time to give you a proper reply. So if I see it, it's not I'm ignoring you. I just don't have time to give you the proper reply. And again, I really appreciate you tuning into this episode of Kickin Asperger's, and we will drop a new video next week. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great week.